Acharya Shri Haridas Thakur ki jai. Prem se kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasri Gaura Bhakta ki jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gop Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan ki jai. Vrindavan Dham ki jai. Mathura Dham ki jai. Navadvip Dham ki jai. Mayapur Dham ki jai. Shri Purushottama Kshetra Jagannath Puri Dham ki jai. Ganga Mai ki jai. Yamuna Mai ki jai. Tulsi Devi ki jai. Bhakti Devi ki jai. Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda ki jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga. Namah Vishnu Paraya Krishna Prestaya Bhutare Srimati Giriraj Swami Niti Namine Namaste Bhaktivedanta Swami Deve Nama Sankirtana Pracharine Nirvishesha Sunyavari Samasta Deshatarine Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Eva Chapatitanam Pavanevyo Vaishnavevyo Namo Namah Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, am I supposed to do this from memory? Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Oh, it's here. Okay. Bhavav Sadat Shrotramano Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashubnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Bhavav Sadat Shrotramano Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Bhavav Sadat Shrotramano Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamanan. Bhavav Sadat Shrotra Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Bhavav Sadat Shrotramina Bharamat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Bhavav Sadot Shotra Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivrittatar Sairupagiyamana. Bhavav Sadot Shrotramano Bhiramat. Gautama Shloka Gunanuvadat. Puman Virajeta Vinapashugnat. Nivritta tatasai rupagiyamanat Bhavo sadat shrotra bimanat Ka uttama shloka gunanuvadat Puman virajeta vina pashugnat Nivritta tarsai rupagiyamanad Bhavau sadat shrotra mimno biramat Kautama shloka gunanuvadat Puman virajeta vina pashugnat Nivritta, released from Tarsai, lust or material activities Upagiyamanat, which is described or sung Bhava Ausadat, which is the right medicine for the material disease. Shrotra, the process of oral reception. Manaha, the subject matter of thought for the mind. Abhiramat, from the pleasing vibrations from such glorification. Kaha, who? Uttama shloka, of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Guna anuvadat, from describing such activities. Puman, a person. Virajeta, can keep himself aloof. Vina, except. Pashugnat, either a butcher or one who is killing his own personal existence. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false, temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Please repeat after me. Glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned soul undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Purport by Srila Prabhupada. Very long purport. Very long purport. Very long purport. Now this is one, obviously by the long purport, that this is one of the key verses of the Bhagavatam. And Prabhupada recommends reciting this verse along with 2 other verses every morning. So I'll read. In India, it is the practice among the general populace to hear about Krishna, either from Bhagavad Gita or from Srimad-Bhagavatam, in order to gain relief from the disease of repeated birth and death. Although India is now fallen, when there is a message that someone will speak about Bhagavad Gita or Srimad-Bhagavatam, thousands of people will gather to hear. This verse indicates, however, that such recitation of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam must be done by persons completely freed from material desires. Nivrittatarsai. Everyone within this material world, beginning from Brahma down to the insignificant ant, is full of material desires for sense enjoyment. And everyone is busy for sense gratification. But when thus engaged, one cannot fully understand the value of Krishna Katha, either in the form of Bhagavad Gita or Srimad-Bhagavatam. As long as one is busy in the business of sense gratification, one cannot understand fully the value of Krishna Katha. If we hear the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from liberated persons, this hearing will certainly free us from the bondage of material activities. But hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam spoken up by a professional reciter cannot actually help us to achieve liberation. So I should point out that hearing from the right person, Prabhupada has presented this whole Srimad-Bhagavatam to us. And by reading his purports and his clarifications of who the personality of Godhead, we're associating directly with Srila Prabhupada through his words, through his instructions. So we're hearing, as I'm reading this, we're not hearing from me, we're hearing from Prabhupada, Paramahamsa devotee, swan-like devotee of the Lord. Krishna Katha is very simple. In Bhagavad Gita it is said that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. As he himself explains, Matak parataram nanyat kinchid asti dhananjaya. O Arjuna, there is no truth superior to me. Bhagavad Gita 7:7. Simply by understanding this fact that Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, one can become a liberated person. But especially in this age, because people are interested in hearing Bhagavad Gita from unscrupulous persons who depart from the simple presentation of Bhagavad Gita and distort it for their personal satisfaction, they fail to derive the real benefit. There are big scholars, politicians, philosophers, and scientists who speak on Bhagavad Gita in their own polluted way, and people in general hear from them, being uninterested in hearing the glories of the Supreme Personality of Godhead from a devotee. A devotee is one who has no other motive for reciting Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam than to serve the Lord. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu has therefore advised us to hear the glories of the Lord from a realized person. Bhagavata parodiya bhagavate stane. Unless one is personally a realized soul in the science of Krishna consciousness, a neophyte should not approach him to hear about the Lord. For this is strictly forbidden by Srila Sanatana Goswami, who quotes from the Padma Purana. Avaishnava mukhodgiranam bhutam hari katamritam shravanam naiva kartavyam sarpochishtam yathapayaha. One should avoid hearing from a person not situated in Vaishnava behavior. A Vaishnava is nivritta trishna. That is, he has no material purpose, for his only purpose is to preach Krishna consciousness. So-called scholars, philosophers, and politicians exploit the importance of Bhagavad Gita by distorting its meaning for their own purposes. Therefore, this verse warns that Krishna Katha should be recited by a person who is Nivritta Trishna. Shukadeva Goswami epitomizes the proper reciter for Srimad-Bhagavatam, and Parikshit Maharaj, who purposefully left his kingdom and family prior to meeting death, epitomizes the person fit to hear it. A qualified reciter of Srimad-Bhagavatam gives the right medicine, bhavaushadhi, for the conditioned soul. The Krishna consciousness movement is therefore trying to train qualified preachers to recite Srimad-Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita throughout the entire world, so that people in general, in all parts of the world, may take advantage of this movement and thus be relieved of the threefold miseries of material existence. The instructions of Bhagavad Gita and the descriptions of Srimad-Bhagavatam are so pleasing that almost anyone suffering from the threefold miseries of material existence will desire to hear the glories of the Lord from these books, and thus benefit on the path of liberation. Two classes of men, however, will never be interested in hearing the message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad-Bhagavatam: those who are determined to commit suicide, and those determined to kill cows and other animals for the satisfaction of their tongues. Although such persons may make a show of hearing Srimad-Bhagavatam at Bhagavata Saptaha, this is but another creation of the karmis, who cannot derive any benefit from such a performance. The word Pashugnat is important in this connection. Pashugna means butcher. Persons fond of performing ritualistic ceremonies for elevation to the higher planetary systems must offer sacrifice, yajnas, by killing animals. Lord Buddhadev therefore rejected the authority of the Vedas because his mission was to stop animal sacrifices, which are recommended in Vedic ritualistic ceremonies. Nindasi yajna vidher ahaha shruti jatam sadaya ridaya darshita pashugatam keshavadrita buddha sharira jaya jagadisha hare jaya jagadisha hare. From the Gita Govinda. Even though animal sacrifices are sanctioned in the Vedic ceremonies, men who kill animals for such ceremonies are considered butchers. Butchers cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness, for they are already materially allured. Their only interest lies in developing comforts for the temporary body. Bhogaishvarya prasaktanam dayaparita chetasam Yavasayatmika buddhi samadho navidiyate. In the minds of those who are too attached to sense enjoyment and material opulence, and who are bewildered by such things, the resolute determination of devotional service to the Supreme Lord does not take place. Bhagavad Gita 2:44. Srila Narottama Dasa Thakura says, Manusya janama paya Radha Krishna na bhajiya janiya suniya vishakainu. Anyone who is not Krishna conscious and who therefore does not engage in the service of the Lord is also Pashugna, for he is willingly drinking poison. Such a person cannot be interested in Krishna Katha because he still has a desire for material sense gratification. He is not Nivritta Trishna. As it is said, Traivargikaste Purusha Vimukha Harimedasaha. Those interested in Trivarga, that is, in Dharma, Artha, and Kama, are religious for the sake of achieving a material position with which to gain better facilities for sense gratification. Such persons are killing themselves by willingly keeping themselves in the cycle of birth and death. They cannot be interested in Krishna consciousness. For Krishna Katha, topics about Krishna consciousness, there must be a speaker and a hearer, both of whom can be interested in Krishna consciousness if they are no longer interested in material topics. One cannot actually see how this attitude automatically develops. One can actually see how this attitude automatically develops in persons who are Krishna conscious. Although the devotees of the Krishna consciousness movement are quite young men, they no longer read materialistic newspapers, magazines, and so on, for they are no longer interested in such topics. Nivrittatarsai. They completely give up the bodily understanding of life. For topics concerning Uttama Shloka, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the spiritual master speaks and the disciple hears with attention. Unless both of them are free from material desires, they cannot be interested in topics of Krishna consciousness. The spiritual master and disciple do not need to understand anything more than Krishna, because simply by understanding Krishna and talking about Krishna, one becomes a perfectly learned person. Yasmin Vijñāte sarvam evam vijñātam bhavati. The Lord sits within everyone's heart, and by the grace of the Lord, the devotee receives instructions directly from the Lord himself, who says in the Bhagavad Gita 15:15, Sarvasya chaham ridi sannivishto matak smritir jnanam apohanam cha vidaischa sarvairaham eva vidyo vidanta krid vedavid eva chaham. I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas. Krishna consciousness is so exalted that one who is perfectly situated in Krishna consciousness under the direction of the spiritual master is fully satisfied by reading Krishna Katha as found in Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and similar Vedic literatures. Since merely talking about Krishna is so pleasing, we can simply imagine how pleasing it is to render service to Krishna. When discourses on Krishna Katha take place between liberated spiritual master and his disciple, others also sometimes take advantage of hearing these topics and also benefit. These topics are the medicine to stop the repetition of birth and death, the cycle of repeated birth and death by which one takes on different bodies again and again is called bhava, or bhava roga. Bhava roga. Roga means disease. So the disease of material existence. If anyone, willingly or unwillingly, hears Krishna Katha, this bhava roga, this disease of birth and death, will certainly stop. Therefore, Krishna Katha is called bhavaushadha, the remedy to stop the repetition of birth and death. Karmis, or persons attached to material sense enjoyment, generally cannot give up their material desires, but Krishna Katha is such a potent medicine that if one is induced to hear Krishna Kirtana, he will certainly be freed from this disease. A practical example is Dhruva Maharaj, who at the end of his tapasya was fully satisfied. When the Lord wanted to give Dhruva a benediction, Dhruva refused it. Yasmin kritartosmi varamna yache. My dear Lord, he said, I am fully satisfied. I do not ask for any benediction for material sense gratification. We actually see that even young boys and girls in the Krishna consciousness movement have given up their long practice of bad habits like illicit sex, meat eating, intoxication, and gambling. Because Krishna consciousness is so potent that it gives them full satisfaction, they are no longer interested in material sense gratification. End of purport. Nivrittatar sairupagyamanad bhavau sadat shrotramano viramat kautama shloka gunanuvadat puman virajeta vina pashugnat. The glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Such glorification is relished by those no longer interested in the false temporary glorification of this cosmic manifestation. Descriptions of the Lord are the right medicine for the conditioned souls undergoing repeated birth and death. Therefore, who will cease hearing such glorification of the Lord except a butcher or one who is killing his own self? Om ajnanatimirandasya jnananjana shalakaya chakshurun militam yena tasmai shri gurave namah. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto my spiritual master, who with the torchlight of knowledge has opened my eyes, which were blinded by the darkness of ignorance. This is just the beginning of the 10th canto. The 10th canto is called Summum Bonum, Prabhupada. It's a Latin word, or phrase. Summum means the highest, and bonum means good. I looked it up on Google. It was the phrase was coined by the Roman philosopher Cicero way back when. And he was following the Greek philosophers who had the same idea as the ideal good. The ideal good. So Prabhupada uses this phrase, the summum bonum, the ideal good, the highest good, who is, of course, Lord Shri Krishna himself. And all 9 cantos of the Srimad-Bhagavatam culminate in the summum bonum. They're a preparation for the purification of the heart, a proper understanding of what is what in both the material world and the spiritual world, and to be able to understand and then come to the point of relishing the mellows of pastimes of Lord Krishna. This is my great honor. I was wondering who's going to give this class. And then all of a sudden, here I am. I didn't know I was supposed to give class. And because I know I've been watching on the internet. I watch, when I do my web work, I watch the classes, and I noticed that they started the 10th canto finally. It was very nice. So I said, text 4, that's really nice text, and I wonder who's going to give the class. And here I am. By Krishna's arrangements, I'm the one giving the class. So I hope I'll do justice. I'll try to do justice to this sublime verse. This is a verse spoken by Parikshit Maharaj. As Prabhupada describes, he's the perfect Nivritta Trishna, was one who has given up all material connections, simply desiring to connect with the Supreme, to fulfill the goal of life, which is to connect with the Supreme. And by the mercy of Krishna, a perfect self-realized soul in the form of Shukadeva Goswami was sent to him to guide him along. So we have in the Srimad-Bhagavatam, the Amala Purana, the pure, spotless Purana, is a description of all these different pastimes, and it is full of different mellows. The whole Bhagavatam is full of mellows. The third verse of the Bhagavatam, in the very beginning, first canto, it says, Nigama kalpataror galitam palam sukha mukad amrita dravya samyutam pipata bhagavatam rasam alayam muhuraho rasika bhuvi bhavukaha. Oh, thoughtful and expert devotees, relish this Srimad-Bhagavatam, which is the ripened fruit of the desired tree of Vedic literatures. It emanated from the lips of Sri Shukadeva Goswami. Therefore, this fruit has become even more tasteful, although its nectarian juice was relishable for all. Was already relishable for all, including liberated souls. So, at every step of the Bhagavatam, whether it be the questions of the sages at Naimisharanya to Sutta Goswami or the questions of Parikshit Maharaj, they're all exuding this nectar of mellows. Now, I mentioned earlier that Prabhupada recommended reciting this verse every morning. There's one of the other verses is Nama Chintamani Krishna's Chaitanya Rasa Vigraha Purna Shuddho Nitya Mukto Binatvanna Manomino. I think I forgot something. Anyway, the holy name of Lord Krishna is transcendently blissful. It bestows all spiritual benedictions, for it is the reservoir of all pleasures. Krishna's name is complete, and it is the form of all transcendental mellows. It is not a material name under any circumstance, and it is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is never contaminated by the material qualities, there's no question of its being involved with Maya. Krishna's name is completely, is liberated and completely Krishna's name is liberated and completely spiritual. It is not a material name under any circumstance. It is no less powerful than Krishna himself. Since Krishna's name is always liberated and spiritual, it is never contaminated by the material qualities. This is because the name of Krishna and Krishna himself are identical. So this verse from the Padma Purana is describing the nectarian qualities of Krishna's name. And as it says, it is rasa vigraha. It is condensed rasa or mellows, transcendental mellows. All the transcendental mellows are contained in the holy name of the Lord. And as I heard in the Parampara system from one of my Shiksha gurus, Srila Ravindra Swarup Prabhu, he describes the Srimad-Bhagavatam as one very, very, very long name of Krishna. He said, sometimes it's a very, very long name of Krishna. Sometimes if a guru wants to be cruel to a disciple, he gives him a very long name. Not really cruel, but he gives him, if it gives him a very long name, then, it takes a long time to tell what your name is. So, but the whole Srimad Bhagavatam is one very, very long name. One can look at it that way. Of course, because it's the literary incarnation of Krishna, there is no difference between Srimad Bhagavatam, the vibration of Srimad Bhagavatam, and the person Krishna. Just as there's no difference between the vibration Krishna and Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself. They're identical. Krishna, when you say Krishna, Krishna is there. And his form, his qualities, his pastimes, they're all there. Srimad Bhagavatam also is being non-different from Krishna. All his names, forms, qualities, pastimes, entourage, devotees, they're also present in there. So one has to see the Srimad Bhagavatam in this way. And then in one very nice purport, Prabhupada has, I think it's in the second canto, might be the first canto, second chapter. But he's explaining that what are the qualifications that one has to have in order to have rapt attention in reading or studying Srimad Bhagavatam. And then, I don't remember what it is. I should memorize it because it's very nice. But basically what he says is that one has to live properly. One cannot be engaged in sinful life and be able to absorb the mind in Krishna consciousness. One has to, there's a whole progression. One has to be free from sinful life, material life, desires for enjoying material life, in order to become free and to be able to be wrapped in attention at Srimad Bhagavatam. It's interesting, Prabhupada mentions the story of Dhruva Maharaj, which is one of my favorite stories, and I just finished reading it in Srimad Bhagavatam in my own studies. And Dhruva Maharaj was a son of Uttanapada. He had two sons. One was Uttama and Dhruva Maharaj. So he was 5 years old, and he was denied access to the throne, to his father's lap, by his stepmother. And so he was being a kshatriya. This inflamed his blood, got his blood boiling. I can't tolerate this. So he went in an angry mood to his mother and checked with her. And the mother is the guru, the first guru. She's the first guru. Her mother teaches us how to get dressed, how to bathe, to be clean, to brush our teeth, which, by the way, is the first instruction that Sanatana Goswami says. First thing we should do is to learn how to clean our teeth. So the mother's the guru. She teaches us how to behave in public. So in this case, Dhruva Maharaj went to his mother, and his mother told him, well, my dear son, you're very unfortunate, you're misfortunate because you have taken birth from my womb, and I'm, her name was Suniti, she was not the favorite. Suruchi was the favorite queen. So she told him that in order to have his wishes fulfilled, he should go to, she heard that by going to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead in the forest, he would be able to meet the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Personality of Godhead would satisfy his desire. So Dhruva Maharaj followed his first guru's instructions. He went to the forest. And by the arrangement of providence, Narada Muni was sent. Great soul. The second in command in our parampara. Lord Brahma, Narada Muni. And he's the spiritual master of so many wonderful devotees. Even some not so wonderful, as a hunter in the forest. See how compassionate he is. So he tested Dhruva Maharaj. He said, oh, you're just a young boy. You can't do this. It's a dangerous place in the forest. You better go back to your mother. And then when you're older, then you come. And Dhruva Maharaj says, no. Kshatriya spirit. Kshatriya blood. No. I am determined to do this. So please give me instructions. So he initiated him. And this is where this mantra comes from. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So Narada Muni instructed him and gave him the vidhi, the regulations, how to chant this mantra. And Dhruva Maharaj performed more and more severe austerities in terms of regulating his eating, standing on one leg. Was that right? Did he stand on one leg? Yeah. Because there's others that stood on one leg too. There was a Muni also. And even curtailing his breathing, so much so that he became such a powerful yogi by following the instructions of his guru, Narada Muni, that the whole universe was choked up and the demigods, they couldn't breathe anymore. So they went to Lord Brahma, and then they went to Lord Brahma. And Lord Brahma went to the shore of the ocean of milk and consulted with Kshirodaksha Vishnu, and who told him that I will come and resolve the issue here. So he appeared before Dhruva Maharaj. And simply by having the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he was completely satisfied. He had no desire anymore. His desire was to have a kingdom greater than his grandfather. And his grandfather, great-grandfather actually. There's, in the lineage, we have Lord Brahma, Swayambhuva Manu. Then Swayambhuva Manu had two children, Priyavrata and Uttanapada, and then Dhruva Maharaj and Uttama. So we're talking way in the beginning of the universe, long, billions of years ago. So Dhruva Maharaj was very satisfied. And he said, well, I was searching after broken pieces of glass, but I see that I have had a gem I have obtained a gem by having the darshan of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Later on, there's another pastime, and I want to share something that I learned that's very important in my life, that I learned from this story of Dhruva Maharaj. And that I remember this when I deal with other people, because it's a very important instruction. Later, Dhruva Maharaj was given the benediction of having the kingdom, Vaikuntha planet, all of his own. Lord Vishnu was going to give him his planet, the pole star, Dhruvaloka. But before he went there, he was going to have reign over a kingdom over the whole earth for 36,000 years. Satya Yuga, people live 100,000 years. 36,000 years he would have a reign in the kingdom of the whole planet. So it happened one day that his brother Uttama went hunting, as kings do, and he was killed by a yaksha. So when Dhruva Maharaj heard about this, being the king, he was supposed to correct his brother was unnecessarily killed. So he went and retaliated against the yakshas, and there's a whole battle scene between Dhruva and the yakshas, and he ended up annihilating many of the yakshas. He went to Alakanatapuri, anyway, in the Himalayas. So Prabhupada in one of the purports describes that the yakshas, they're the ancestors of the Tibetans. Anyway, Dhruva Maharaj was getting a little carried away with killing the yakshas, and Swayambhuva Manu, his grandfather, came and stopped him and was giving all kinds of explanations that you're killing innocent yakshas. They had nothing to do with the killing of your brother. You have already killed enough of these yakshas, so you should stop. And he gives a very nice instruction. Titikshaya karunaya maitriya chakila jantushu samatvena cha sarvatma bhagavan samprasidati. The Supreme Lord is very pleased when he sees his devotee greet other devotees with tolerance, mercy, friendliness, and equality. So these four things. For me, it meant, our business as devotees were to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And here's a very simple instruction on how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna. It's the Supreme Lord. Titikshaya karunaya maitya chakila jantushu samatvena chasarvatma bhagavan samprasidati. It's simply by being tolerant and merciful and friendly and treating others as our equals, not being in assuming a superior position from them. This is not difficult at all. And it's also, it's very easy for us to implement it in our life, to see other people that we're all spirit souls, we're in this material world. We need to be merciful upon each other and tolerant, because things happen in this world, and, the weather, sometimes we don't get the prasadam we want, or the bed that we need, or whatever. Sometimes we do, but, we have to be tolerant that way. And to be friendly, it's not hard to be friendly. And just simply smile, and it's a friendly attitude, and to be open, and to be, equal. It's not difficult. But it also provides us a way in which we can judge how other people are advanced. Certain religious groups, I would classify them as a little intolerant, not very merciful to others, not friendly either. you know, and they go around chopping people's heads off. So you can see, you know, they may not be on the right path of pleasing the Supreme Personality of Godhead by their activities. So, rasa. Srimad-Bhagavatam is rasa. One has to approach spiritual this Srimad-Bhagavatam following in the footsteps of the spiritual master. As the verse says, glorification of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is performed in the parampara system. That is, it is conveyed from spiritual master to disciple. Now, Srila Prabhupada, by his great mercy and friendliness, tolerance towards us, has given us, conveyed us this Srimad-Bhagavatam and his purports. So, we shouldn't neglect Srimad-Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita, all these wonderful works that Srila Prabhupada has brought to us by his mercy. And so, the more we get absorbed into Srimad-Bhagavatam, the more we see the pettiness and how small all these little pleasures in the material world. You know? I was coming, I ride the train. I'm retired from Amtrak Railroad, so I can ride the train for free. And so I live in Michigan, which is on the other side of the lake, Lake Michigan. And I take the train in. And I can see that everybody, you know, the train is like a little village on wheels. And everybody's so much absorbed in sense gratification. They have their whole mood. It's like they're looking for thrills. They're everybody's thrill seeking. Thrill seeking. They're looking for thrills. So they have conversations. They have intoxication. They go to the cafe and they get food, even though they're already can hardly manage to get through the aisles. They're coming in with more and more food. You know, boga. They're trying to enjoy life, but they don't know. There is no enjoyment. The real thrill that everybody's seeking, Anandam Buddhivardhanam, as Lord Chaitanya says, is in Krishna consciousness. Particularly chanting the holy name, absorbing our consciousness in the pastimes of the Lord, engaging in the devotional service of the Lord, associating with the devotees. This is where the real thrill is. So, what time's the class supposed to end? 8:30? Oh, I'm over. Sorry. If there's any comments, questions, corrections.
Hare Krishna. You quoted that verse, Nigamakalpataror Galitafalam, and then you use the last line that its nectar and juice is relished by all, including self-realized souls. Can you elaborate that?
Yeah, it's referring to those who, like Shukadeva Goswami, who are already liberated, or the four Kumaras. They're already liberated. They have no attraction for the material world. But their attraction for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the nectar emanating from his lotus feet, has not yet awakened. So, even though a liberated soul may not may not have any attraction for the mundane world, for what's going on. He's not looking for thrills in the material world. They will find the Srimad-Bhagavatam and the nectar within it relishable. So that means that the nectar of the Srimad-Bhagavatam, Krishna Katha, is not of this world. It's transcendental. Because even though they have no attraction for anything within the material, they're attracted by the pastimes, the nectar of the pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Is that okay?
Oh, since they were the self-realized soul, whatever result of the self-realization or jnana is coming is through bhakti only, right?
Repeat that again.
Whatever result of the self-realization, their realization of Brahman or Paramatma, not Paramatma of course, Brahman, is just because of the tinge of bhakti in it.
Well, that's what we're told. That we cannot, there's this verse, right? There's 3 levels of self-realized souls. Different people, different knowers of the absolute truth, know the supreme absolute truth as Brahman, Paramatma, and Bhagavan. So one cannot reach the Brahman understanding, as you say. We're told in the Parampara system that there has to be some bhakti in order to get the result. Otherwise, they don't get it. But those who are situated in Brahman realization, those which are jnanis, and those who are yogis, who are situated in the Paramatma realization, they can graduate to become Bhagavatas by the association of another devotee. And from that devotee, he will hear the nectar of the glories, the pastimes, the names of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and understand, reach that platform, the highest platform of devotional service. So we graduate. I can't say that I'm even on the Brahman realization platform, but I try to repeat what I've heard. So that's important. Actually, it's a very important verse. That's when I was initiated. I was just reinitiated recently by His Holiness Giriraj Maharaj in California. And as usual, you have to, the candidate just gives the vows that, no meat eating, illicit sex, or gambling, or intoxication, and chanting a minimum of 16 rounds every day. And then Maharaj said, and no mental speculation. So I think that I have a tinge of mental speculation that I have to guard against. And the way you guard against it is just by checking, is this something that you heard, or is it something that you're concocting, right? And because in order to have the potency to preach and to share, preaching means sharing, right? You're sharing your enthusiasm, sharing your interest, sharing your inspiration. We can explain the philosophy, but if we're not into it so much, it's not going to have potency. But if we're inspired, and if we're living it, then that's going to have, that preaching is going to be effective, and people will get inspired by it. So.
Sorry, I asked this question because whenever I'm trying to understand this thing, that they are so elevated, they're very close to bhakti, very, 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 very close to bhakti. But still, they were not getting bhakti unless they got a association of devotees. I'm surprised by this, that they are so close, very close. Like,
Yeah.
for example, for Kumara, just smelling the tulsi aroma,
Yeah.
they become poop.
Right.
So it's amazing to understand this. Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Premi, Bhakta, Prabhu, thank you for your class. Very wonderful class.
Thank you.
It was a lot of long verse and a lot of important points. One thing that came to mind is that some important points that came to mind when I read this purport is that there's many examples where it's described that even if we're hearing from the right source, but if we have the wrong motivation, then we don't get any benefit. Just like Prabhupada's God brothers, they were hearing from the right source, Bhakti Siddhanta, but they didn't have the right motivation, so there was the Gaudiya mouth dismantled. On the other hand, I was reading one pastime where it's basically described that even if we're hearing from the wrong source, but we have the proper motivation, then we derive all benefit. This pastime appears in, maybe you would like to investigate, it's a really good pastime. It's in Chaitanya Bhagavat, Madhyakan, chapter 21. Long story short, basically there was two devotees, Devananda Pandit and Srivas Pandit. Devananda Pandit was a celibate for his whole life, and he took sannyas. And he was always giving Srimad-Bhagavatam class to his students in Navadvip. So one day, Lord Chaitanya's one of his devotees, Srivas, came across the Bhagavatam while he was giving class to his students. So during class, while Bhagavatam class was going on, Srivasa was very loud. He was crying from love of Godhead. He was sighing, he was laughing. And Devananda Pandit and the students became very disturbed, so much that they became so disturbed that they dragged him out of the Bhagavatam class and threw him out. And so one day when Lord Chaitanya was reminiscing his pastime, he wasn't there at the time, but when he saw Devananda Pandit, he's a super soul, so he knew about this incident. Lord Chaitanya blasted him. He says, even though you have information of the Bhagavatam, you don't have any transformation from the Bhagavatam, because I'm not looking for someone who knows the most, but someone who loves the most. Sarvasya chaham hridi sanivishto mata shmita jnanam upahanam cha. Prabhupada quotes that verse in his purport that actually we don't have any knowledge. So what are we supposed to focus on? Te sham satata yuktanam bhajatam priti purvakam didami buddhi yogam tam yenama upayanti. We should focus on the transformation and let Krishna handle the proper information. And so the last point I want to appreciate about this pastime is that even though we hear the term purity is the force, but he was a celibate his whole life. But Lord Chaitanya said, you're not an authority on the Gita. So the lesson I took from this is that it doesn't matter how pure we are or how impure we think we are. If the Lord is not pleased with us, then we can't benefit ourselves or others. On the other hand, it doesn't matter how impure we are or how impure we think we are. If the Lord is pleased with our determination, our devotional character, then we could benefit ourselves and others. Just like Bilva Mangal Thakur, he was a prostitute hunter, but Lord Chaitanya was authorized, gave him the title Swami in the same life, and he was always quoting him. So that's one thing I appreciate. So, I mean, if I were to ask a question, I feel like these pastimes are very inspirational for us to not get discouraged from our own anarthas. But the most important point is to love and respect and appreciate devotees and get with this criticizing mentality, especially for those who love Bhagavatam. So I would say, if you have a comment on I feel like these pastimes are very inspirational to stay motivated regardless of our anarthas, as long as we give it the anartha of criticizing devotees. So anyway, you can, if you want.
I have a question for you. Why don't you ever give class?
I'm not qualified to give class. And I did give class before. And the only reason I gave class before, I'm not a very eloquent speaker, but the only reason the devotees allowed me to give class before is because during my initiation day, I thanked everyone except Jitendriya. He's been one of the most, actually, I will argue to say he was more happy to see me be initiated than even my brother and my mother. And that's a strong statement because he never hugs anyone. He hugged me on my initiation day and he smiled like he was a kid in a candy store. He never hugs anyone. That's the first time I ever, so I felt very bad that during my initiation day, I never thanked him. So then I was just thinking, Krishna giving me the opportunity to thank him publicly. So then a few weeks later, somebody asked me to give a Bhagavatam class, and not because Krishna knows I'm not qualified, but so I could thank Jitendra publicly, and he gave me that opportunity. So so I was very grateful for that, but Krishna knows I'm not qualified. So anyway, I appreciate your gratitude, but maybe you could ask, maybe comment on my original question if possible, but if not, I just appreciated these points from the Bhagavatam.
I wasn't aware that there was a question in all that. I wasn't aware that there was a question in all that.
The question is that, or you could comment on it, how to stay inspired to not get discouraged from my anarthas, because we see people leave Krishna consciousness all the time because they're so down on their anarthas. As long as you're not criticizing devotees, then there's no reason to become discouraged. But if you're criticizing devotees, it doesn't matter how pure you are. You know, you'll never develop that taste. That's why Chaitanya told that devotee, you can't derive any happiness from the Bhagavatam because you're criticizing, you know, my loving devotee. You're always, you know, can't derive any ruchi, any taste. So.
Well, people don't care how much you know. They want to know how much you care. And Krishna doesn't care how much you know. He wants to know how much you care. So it's not a question of acquiring knowledge. It's learning how to care for each other. If somebody leaves, they're not being cared for. I've left a few times because nobody cared. Or they cared in an exploitative way. They're exploiting. They want you to do this and that and the other, but they don't care about you. They just want to extract some service from you because whatever. But devotional service is individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. You know, those three, ISV, individual, spontaneous, and voluntary. So we have to cultivate that within ourselves and recognize that in others too. And of course, there's a certain standard that has to be maintained in the temple, and there's requirements, services that need to be met, fulfilled. But all these things are secondary to actually the devotee, caring for the devotee. That's the highest service, is to care for Krishna's devotees. And Krishna will see that you care about him when you care about his devotees. Does that answer your question? It's my realization anyway, you know, I don't know, it's not. Well, it also applies to Krishna, because, you know, one may be a very great scholar, a Digvijay Pandita, you know, and conquering everybody with our philosophy, but, you know, who cares? But if you care about somebody, everybody cares about you. You know, if you care about everybody, everybody cares about you, you know. So, and Krishna cares about you. He'll take care of you because you're caring about his devotees, you know. So, anyway, thank you very much.
Sorry, I know it's late, and I apologize if I'm holding up everybody, but I just want to ask one thing. During the course of your presentation, you touched on the point that you know, if there's sinful activity, then it's very difficult for the mind to take to Krishna consciousness. So I just wanted to request you if you could elaborate a little bit on that.
So I had trouble understanding. It's the echo.
You had mentioned that with sinful activity, it was very difficult for the mind to take to Krishna consciousness. So yes. I wanted to ask if you'd be kind enough to elaborate a little on that point.
It's like you said in your class. We have patterns of thought. We're all absorbed in these conditioned loops that we go through. We have, as an individual living entity in a material body, we're embodied souls. We're endowed with a particular set of senses, mind, and intelligence. And they allow us to perceive what's going on around us, and we're able to formulate representations of what's going on around us, our interpretations within our mind, guided by the intelligence. So we're like a child in a sandbox. And then the sandbox is square, we have some toys, some sand that we play with, but we're not allowed to leave the sandbox. That's the limitation. We cannot see ultraviolet lights or infrared. We cannot fly in the sky. We cannot dig in the ground like a worm or fly like a bird. We cannot see like an eagle does, or fly and swoop down. We don't have the power of a tiger or of an elephant. So we have these limitations that we have. And within these limitations, we have our patterns of thought that they're just grooves that we go around and around and around. And it's just our habit, it's our conditioning. And Krishna consciousness is beyond this whole material world. It's coming from the spiritual world. It's transcendental. And somehow or other, if our senses, our mind, and our intelligence become shocked or awakened to this transcendent reality, then we can begin cultivating. But it's very difficult for somebody who's seeking for all these thrills, unless they come in contact with the devotee, and the devotee, by their association, their contact, Brahma Samsparsha, they're able to infuse and enliven their senses in Krishna consciousness. Even then, it's very difficult. Many people just go right on by and say, look, these weirdos. But sometimes Super Soul will send somebody who's ready, who's ripe to get in contact with the devotee. So, is that satisfying? So, thank you very much for your kind attention. It's a great honor to be here, to be able to give class. Jai Prabhupada, Srimad-Bhagavatam Grantaraj Ki Jai.